Hey, it's Hunt. You found Hunt on Saints. We're talking black and gold football. Do us a favor. Hit the like button, share your comments below, and hit that subscription button so you can get all of our content. Enjoy. Up at LouisianaSports.net right now, Ross Jackson put together a piece with some potential replacement candidates for Dennis Allen as the head coach of the New Orleans Saints. Of course, we're not going to find this out for months now. This is an early termination for Dennis Allen, and you're not going to make a hire here until most teams' seasons are done. So you're talking about a likely January announcement for the new head coach of the New Orleans Saints. So a long way to go for the Saints to make this hire, but they've got every opportunity now to really scour the market, make sure they cover their bases. You don't have to be in a rush at all. You're the only team in the NFL without a head coach, and you've got to make sure that you get this right because you've got to get this culture moving back in a positive direction. So I've got some thoughts before we get to some of the names on the challenge that Mickey Loomis and Dennis Lauscha and Gail Benson have here in picking the next head coach of the Saints. This is not a desirable spot. You have an aging team that is playing very poorly and is $60 million over the salary cap. Okay? So this is not a quick fix. You're going to have to come in here and understand that you probably don't have your quarterback. You don't have any ability to go out in free agency and sign 4 or 5 starters. And you're going to have to lean on draft picks. And the guys who have been doing a lot of the drafting have missed a good bit recently. So it's not attractive. Now, there are only 32 of these. So if you get your shot, you probably got to go. I mean, I don't think that Detroit was in great shape when Dan Campbell took that job. But he's made it work. So if you can find a guy that's willing to take a challenge, Sean Payton was willing to take a challenge. I would suggest that the Saints right now are in better shape than they were when Sean Payton got the job because the city is not underwater. But it's going to be a tough recruiting pitch, and you've got to look around and see what jobs do come open in the NFL. The positives the Saints have, you've got an owner who is willing more often than not to pay for things and gets out of the way. It's not going to be a distraction to you. You've got an incredible fan base and a great home field advantage when you're good. Outside of that, you got some work to do selling this gig as one that a lot of people want. So here are the names that Ross Jackson has put up on LouisianaSports.net as guys that the Saints may look at. The first is the hottest name in football right now, and that's Ben Johnson. Ben Johnson is the Lions offensive coordinator, and the Lions have been awesome offensively under his tutelage. He's done a phenomenal job in getting Jared Goff to play MVP-level football. They've got really good personnel. It helps to have Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs and some of the guys that they've been able to get into Detroit. But they've been awesome. And this would very much be kind of the zig and the zag. Usually when you fire a coach, no matter what sport it is, you kind of go the other way with your next one. So right now you've got an old-school defensive coach that you've just fired. Now you're looking at a young, innovative, hotshot offensive mind to be your next head coach. And that's kind of the direction most of the league is going. So Ben Johnson, I think, makes a ton of sense. I really like that idea. Brian Flores is calling the defense for Minnesota. Of course, he got an opportunity with the Dolphins, and then there were all the issues, and there have been legal ramifications. And now that lawsuit with the NFL is settled, he is likely, I think, to get another opportunity as a coach. If you're okay with some of the things that have gone on in the past, he's a heck of a football coach. He's a hard ass, and he's uber competitive. And I think, again, is going to get an opportunity. Is the Saints that opportunity? We'll see. I could get on board with that one as well. Liam Coen is an interesting name that Ross brings up in this story. When I think Liam Coen, I think Kentucky. But this is another offensive mind. He's done a good job in Tampa. Now they've struggled the last couple of weeks because Chris Godwin and Mike Evans have gone down, but Baker Mayfield has played very well. He's from the Sean McVay tree. This would be a zigzag situation. This is very much different than Dennis Allen. I don't know if I'm super fired up about Liam Coen. That doesn't do a ton for me, but it certainly is a thought. Bobby Slowik is the Houston Texans offensive coordinator. He's done a good job with C.J. Stroud, and he's been calling the plays there. He spent time in San Francisco where everybody's kind of trying to go to get those young offensive minds, so maybe Bobby Slowik is a guy that they look at. And the final one is Aaron Glenn. This is where I have a little bit of a conflict with Aaron internally with Aaron Glenn. Not at all with Aaron Glenn as a person or a coach. I don't have any conflict with him. I have internal conflict when I assess him as a possibility as the next Saints coach, because he's done an awesome job with the Detroit Lions defense, even though they're dealing with a ton of injuries. They don't have Hayden Hutchinson. They played great in Lambeau. Now, it was raining, that helps, but they played great yesterday in Lambeau defensively. But he's right off the Dennis Allen tree. Same background, same scheme, worked in New Orleans. It feels like it's right off of Dennis Allen's tree. And that makes me wonder. And that's probably unfair to Aaron Glenn, to be quite frank. I probably shouldn't hold that against him because he's his own coach. But we're talking about, potentially going away from Allen to the young hotshot offensive guy. And then you go look at Aaron Glenn, who's a secondary guy like Allen, defensive guy like Allen, worked under Dennis Allen. The whole thing to me feels kind of like a retread situation. So I would have to think about that one a little bit more candidly to have a great feeling on who it would be, whether or not I thought that would be a good idea. But I'm concerned about that a little bit. Other names that Ross Jackson mentions, Bill Belichick. There's no way Bill Belichick's coming to New Orleans. He would go to a ready-made spot with a quarterback that had a reasonable salary cap situation. Bill Belichick is not stepping in to coach a football team that has no chance to win that year, and the Saints have no chance to win next year. So that's a non-starter. I think Joe Brady has been great in Buffalo since taking over the reins of that offense mid-season last year. Of course, he has worked with the Saints previously under Sean Payton. And I think we'll get a chance. He's young, but I think he's ascending toward a chance to be a head coach. That one I would probably push back against a little bit. Here's the one that I have always thought made a ton of sense to me, and that's Mike Vrabel. I think he did a really good job in Tennessee. I don't know why they were so adamant they had to fire him, and now they're terrible again. I thought he did a good job there. Yeah, they stumbled in the playoffs a couple times. He had Ryan Tannehill as his quarterback. That's about the ceiling for a Ryan Tannehill-led team, I think. They rode Derrick Henry hard. They played very good defense, and they got bounced generally in the first round of the playoffs. But I think Vrabel's a good coach. I think he's a guy that could come in and kind of change the way that the Saints operate, and that one to me makes a ton of sense. Then you got Steve Spagnuolo, who of course spent some time as a defensive coordinator in New Orleans. He's been running the Chiefs defense, and they are awesome on defense right now. That's a very much similar to Dennis Allen hire, older, old school defensive coach, but he spent a lot of time around Andy Reid and a winning culture. And I think there's probably some benefit there to that. So I feel like that's a pretty comprehensive list. There are certainly other guys, and the Saints have every opportunity to go interview whoever it is they want to interview because they've got a lot of time to get this right. But to me, if you're making me look at this list, I think Ben Johnson and Mike Vrabel are my two favorites of the list for very different reasons. But I think those are the two that I would probably point to the most quickly. I don't think there's any shot for Bill Belichick, and I would probably push back a little bit on Joe Brady and even Bobby Slowik, just real young guys who haven't been in that position. I realize Ben Johnson's like that, but I think that Denver's offense looks so good. I just don't care. They look fantastic offensively, and I would like to see a little bit of that in New Orleans as well. So that's kind of a look. Beck, you're a Saints guy. You got the news earlier today. I've kind of gone through my thoughts on the situation as well as some potential candidates. How do you feel about some of those names and ultimately the direction the Saints need to go?
Well, I feel very surprised. Obviously, I think most people didn't think that the Saints would fire Dennis Allen midseason, but it seemed like the loss to the Panthers they were forced to do it. There's just no way they could have done it. The fans were just restless and a move had to be made.
I mean, the Dome's not going to be pleasant on Sunday,
no.
But if they would not have fired him, it would have been
a ghost town.
Cesspool.
Yeah,
I mean, just bad. Booze, vitriol, just awful stuff.
Yeah, it would have been tough. So they had to do it, and like you said, it's a good. Now them and the Jets are the only two teams that have fired their coach so far. I'm not sure that it makes a difference too much right now. But obviously they'll get to really look at other options. But I think Ben Johnson is probably the guy that most people will circle on the list, and I think he would be a good fit. But Aaron Glenn is an interesting one. I understand your sentiment, and I think a lot of people, if they hear that, that's the thing though. I think a lot of the really diehard Saints fans will remember him, but not. I don't think that many will. But when the stories start coming out about how he's a former coach under Allen, that may be negative. But he's done a great job with the Lions, and I wouldn't be opposed to it. But I do think one interesting thing is that if the Saints do bring in an offensive guy, that probably means that the Clint Kubiak experiment's over, and he'll have been here for 1 year, and that's it. Not to say that he's had a great time here, except for those first 2 weeks, but I can't say that I blame him too much on the fact of what's happened the last 7 weeks.
Look, there's a lot here, and it's a tough profession. They all know what they sign up for. They're paid very well. They move all the time. It's not stable at all. The fact that Dennis Allen was in the same city from 2015 through 2024, that doesn't happen. Andy Reid and Mike Tomlin do that. Nobody else does. So it was a long run there. As far as Clint Kubiak goes, and again, I can evaluate, I feel like, college position coaches and stuff because recruiting is so visible to us and you can see it. NFL, it's more behind closed doors there, and I'm certainly not at practice to figure out how the development's going for some of these guys. But I don't need anybody that's on the Saints staff back. There's nobody that I look at and go, yeah, you really need to make sure that he's part of the next staff. They tried that. They tried that whole thing with the transition.
Yeah,
gut it, empty the house.
The only thing I would say, with Darren Rizzi becoming the interim, I'm not sure that he would want to stick around with the next regime. But Darren Rizzi is a guy that everybody in the locker room respects, and he's a really good special teams coordinator. I'm not sure that he will want to stay, but if you can somehow get him to stay, I think he's a really good guy for the locker room, and maybe he'll stick around after getting the interim spot. But I'm not. Obviously, whoever they hire is most likely going to just clear everyone out. But that's one guy I think that maybe you want to keep.
Look, I'm not going to complain if you keep the special teams coach. I'm not going to complain if you fire him. But your point is well made. I want.
No, you need to.
I want Mickey Loomis to look like that Will Smith gif. Walk in on airline drive. There's just nobody. Where is everybody? Yeah. You need to fix. What I didn't mention in the first segment, and it's one thing that I did want to get to eventually. Dennis Allen lost the locker room.
Yeah,
and you can't recover from that. And Ross Jackson in his piece up today on LouisianaSports.net said he asked a player if he, and this was before Dennis Allen was fired, if he thought that the locker room was lost. And the quote that was given to Ross Jackson from an anonymous player was, "It's been gone." They're just, it's gone. They didn't respect him. They didn't want to play for him. They weren't comfortable with him. It just did not work, and you can't get that back. And so we'll see if him being out of the building puts a little bit of life into the team, and they want to play for Rizzi. We'll see. Truth be told, it doesn't really matter. And quite candidly, it's probably better for the Saints if they lose a bunch because you need to draft higher and get impact players on the cheap. Whether that's a quarterback, whether it's not, I don't know. But there's no salvaging this. This is over. The era is over, and it's time to sever those ties and go figure something else out. So it's going to be a tough sell for the Saints organization to go get a coach and make them come to New Orleans because of the situation that the roster and the salary cap are in. That's ineptitude by the executives, quite frankly. But they've got to start over, and that's the most important thing. And today was the first step in that direction. Hey, it's Hunt. Thanks for watching Hunt on Saints. Before you leave, help us out a little bit. Hit that like button, leave your comments in the section below, and hit that subscribe button so you get all our content right here from Hunt on Saints. We'll see you next time.